It's the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker. Why are you shaking your head?
No reason. No reason at all. There's no reason I was shaking my head at all.
He seems to be kind of furious at me.
No, I'm so happy.
He's so good. Good to have you with us. The Cardinals taking it on the chin today, but it's a guy that you'll probably never see at the major league level. They got clobbered today. He didn't get clobbered, but it's the Cardinals are doing their due diligence in finding players, and the starting pitcher today that they had acquired from the White Sox, Schuster, goes 3 innings, allows 4 runs on 7 hits. He struck out 4, but didn't walk anybody. And he's not going to be here on March 26th anyway, so who's worried about it? But one of the rare occurrences this spring where the Cardinals starting pitcher has not turned in a progressive performance. For the most part, the Cardinals starters have started well and gotten a little bit better. They lose 6-1 to the Mets today. And Matthew, I don't think the Cardinal offense is going to be really good this year. That's why I really don't talk about it that much, I guess. But today, only 1 run against the Mets. And Velasquez, who's having a really good spring, hit his second home run for the Cardinals' only run. He hit it off Peterson. And the Cardinals fall by a score of 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, I really haven't been locked into Velasquez. For me, the center field play of Jose Fermin was something that jumped out to me yesterday. Mm-hmm. The fact that Ali Marmol talked about how important it is, how important it has been for him to show consistency with that switch. The fact that he was in center field and not Church, which tells me they know Church can play center field. So they're trying to see if Fermin can to more strengthen the case of him staying here for the opening day roster because of his versatility to be the 4th outfielder in multiple spots.
And this will be a situation where people will go bananas because Jose Fermin is hitting 188 after he's had 20 at-bats in the first month of the season. And honestly, if Jose Fermin is going to, if your team is going to be dependent on the quality of his play for winning or losing, you aren't going to win anyway. So he's one of those guys that I just don't worry about because they're going to have 13 position players, and Jose Fermin will be their 13th position player.
Yeah.
So you'd love to have an all-star for all 13 of those spots. But having a guy that can play every position, he can play third, he can play short, he can play second. I'm assuming he can play first. We know he can play a little bit of left. If he can play center, maybe hop into right, he'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. So the 13th guy, I would think it'll wind up being Sajaci. So figure your 9, you're going to have, let's go around the infield. Gorman, Wynn, Weatherholt, and Burleson, and Pajes behind the plate. And then your outfield.
By the way, this was us a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. For some reason.
I'm just looking at your last 4, right?
I'm just saying this is what we predicted was going to be the opening day.
Crooks isn't going to be there.
Batters. So obviously we were wrong about Crooks.
Yep.
So that opens up 1 spot.
So figure a 4-man bench and 2 of those 4, assuming
Pozo's in there. We didn't have him in there.
Yeah.
So Pozo instead of Crooks. I think I think that pretty much is going to be what we see. Obviously, no Donovan. He's out now.
Right.
So things have changed a little bit from a few weeks ago.
Right. So your 4-man bench, Sajaci, Church because he's an experienced outfielder, Pozo, and then maybe Fermin, or maybe and left field is an open question right now. Maybe Church will be your opening day left fielder, but I'm doing all of this with the assumption that at some point you're going to have Lars Nootbaar in left field. So a 4-man bench with Nootbaar in left, you would have Sajaci as a backup infielder,
mm-hmm.
Fermin doing everything,
mm-hmm.
Church and Pozo, and then Herrera, Pozo, and Pajes are your catchers. And Fermin and Sajaci's your backup third baseman. Fermin can be your backup shortstop. Anybody can back up Weatherholt, including Gorman. And then you've got plenty of people to play the outfield. If you have Sajaci, Fermin, plus your starting 3 outfielders, you're fine. So there's your here. We're almost 2 weeks away, and I've got your roster set.
Pretty much. As soon as you get Nootbaar healthy.
Yeah. What about the catching position, though? And you have an interesting opening day. We're playing Predictionary here. So we're going to go from opening day to Flag Day, June 14th, mm-hmm. which is when Mike Claiborne, our teammate here STL Sports Central says the season really starts.
Can I say
Yeah.
that's when the season really starts? At the same time, it's 71 games into the season.
You can lose a season. You can't win a season by June 15th, but you can lose a season by June 15th.
Absolutely you can. 71 games is, I mean, it's crazy that we call it the first and the second half of the All-Star break because it's 110 games and then 50. But it is 71 games from opening day to Flag Day. So when you think about it that way, it's probably too large of a span of time for when the first thing's going to happen that maybe forces a shift in the catching rotation. But I like the round number, so we're going to go off it for today's little exercise.
I like it.
We're going to predict the first half. I did the math going off last year when the catchers played over 1,400 innings. It was 8.8 innings because obviously away games, when you lose, you don't play 9 innings. You're defensively, that is. Right. So 71 games, 8.8 innings per game at the catcher position gives us 625 total innings from opening day to Flag Day at the catcher spot. Across Herrera, Pages, and Pozo, we're theorizing that Flag Day is when an injury happens or when they pull the plug on the Herrera thing to move him to DH or first base or left field, what have you.
Okay.
Herrera, Pages, and Pozo, 625 total innings in that span. How many innings does each player get?
Okay. So I'm going to
I'll read some text here. Nancy Pat says, hello, sports fans.
Hello,
Nancy Pat. Jeremy Hodge also saying hello to everyone. Justin Hutchins, just not a very good showing by the offense today. Just 3 hits. It wasn't the biggest wasn't the biggest group of bats in the lineup today.
You know what I like to do? I always like to blame the hitting coach.
There you go. That's always a smart thing to do.
Yep.
Okay. It's not going to be
brought up. I'm going to write some. I'm going all Bernie on you.
Okay. I love that. I like that.
Okay.
If you're going to go all best in the business on me, I can handle
absolutely.
that. Aaron D says it's going to be great to watch Walker and Gorman hit 175. Aaron,
it is.
You're so consistent, unlike those two hitters,
positivity.
and that's what I appreciate. Hey, sometimes you just got to lean on consistency, Randy, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Aaron D is consistent. He also doesn't want to watch Fermin play. Listen, you got to tip your cap to Brendan Schaefer. He called that one. He called his shot. That was I think it was the Contreras trade. And Schaefer called his shot that Fermin was going to play left field on opening day. And I'm 90% sure he was joking. And he's going to end up being completely correct. which is interesting. But hey, if he's going to make plays like he did yesterday in center field, listen, we know defensively he'll have left field figured out. I don't have high hopes for the offense out of the gate in the first place. So, play some solid defensive game. Maybe he can run a little bit. What's Jose Fermin ever really stolen bases based? Oh, damn it. I was trying to find something to get excited about with Jose Fermin playing some games.
This is by Flag Day, right?
Yes, 71 games.
I wish I would have had calculators when I was in school. This would have helped with math.
You guys didn't have calculators when you were in school?
Nope.
I think
to show our work.
Oh, well, I mean, we still have to show work with calculators. We're just not in school anymore. That helps.
Okay, here we go. Well, this is kind of easy.
He's stolen 4 bases across 40 hits.
Okay.
Take away a couple extra base hits. Not bad.
So, Pages plays 45 games.
Okay.
Pozo plays 4.
Okay.
Which that's 49.
You only give 4 to Pozo. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
59, 69. So 22 for Herrera. So that gives Pages 396 innings.
Mm-hmm.
Herrera 194.
Mm-hmm.
And Pozo 35.
What was the game breakdown again?
45 games for Pages.
Okay.
22 for Herrera, which is 67, and then 4 for Pozo, takes you up to 71.
All right. Perfect. You said 4. Okay. Now you don't have to show me that work, but you do have to show me the work on how you got to those numbers. Why is the break? Yes, I know, but show me the work, or show them the work.
Okay. So here's the work. The Cardinals are still, and remember, Crooks isn't here. This could change by Flag Day if there's an injury, but the primary thing that Ollie Marmol wants to do with and Dusty Blake want to do with a relatively young rotation that includes Liberatore, who's pitched a full season in the majors, McGreevy has not. Palante still has not. Well, I guess you could say he started all last year, but he's still a young pitcher. Fitz has never started a full season in the majors. Amazingly, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the most starts in a season that Dustin May has ever had is 20. He's never pitched a full season in the majors, and I might be wrong about that, but we'll double check. And then Leahy has never pitched a full season in the majors or the minors. So what I'm thinking is the Cardinals are going to want a catcher back there with most of the young pitchers that can ease their mind and guide them through start so that they don't have to think. They want somebody back there that's going to hop on the pitch comm that the pitchers will have complete trust in. And I don't think, I'm pretty sure they won't have complete trust in Herrera yet, because Herrera just said he didn't learn how to catch until 2024. And you look at that catcher's ERA, Herrera is a full run higher than Pages. And then Pozo, he's a pinch hitter. He was one of the best pinch hitters in baseball last year. A good pinch hitter, but he's not going to be a guy that the Cardinals are going to plan on catching. He's a swell guy to have on a team, but he's just not going to be a regular catcher. Now, sometimes if you lose your second baseman, you put him behind the plate, then you move Pages to second. But I think for the most part, we're going to see and that was Pages at second, wasn't it?
Yes,
and then Pozo behind the plate. So I've only got the 4 games there. Was I right about the starts? 25 starts, or 23 starts is the career high for Dustin May. And that was last year, by the way. But again, a guy who's 7 or 8 starts short of a full season. I believe that the Cardinals want to do everything they can to suppress runs. And the guy that those pitchers right now that's up here, they like throwing to is Pages. By the way, they do like throwing to Jimmy Crooks too.
Do you think we see a lot of games where Herrera starts but doesn't finish the game behind the plate?
Yeah.
That's why I think that's why I went off innings instead of starts, is because I think we'll see a lot of maybe like 7 inning runs for Herrera, but then Pages finishes it out. Yeah. Or maybe we see a couple Pozo innings get him up to around 40 or 50 because you're down by 2 or 3 runs. You want a little punch to the bat, but it's Herrera's off day, or Herrera's already at DH, so you can't make that change yet. So you want a punch from the bat, you go Pozo instead of Pages for the last few innings of a game. Like kind of like with the closure situation, they can be kind of situational at times. And so that's why I think I would go. I like the numbers. I'd go a little bit higher on Pozo. I'd go a little bit lower on Pages because I just think they're willing to let the Herrera thing happen, and they're willing to satisfy a guy who arguably is going to be their best hitter over the next few years.
I hope that Herrera makes a quick leap, but like we said, I think on yesterday's show, this is a guy that basically admitted that he went 8 years without being taught how to catch. Do you become a good catcher that quickly?
You can't.
So you finally get some instruction here and Pogue taught him how to catch in 24, but he's far from a finished product. Now, has he played enough catcher with the instruction of how to do it properly, so that he can be good, let alone great, in 2026?
But that's why I think they'll say the only way we'll know is by letting him play.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
And so it doesn't matter how bad we are.
In this season, right?
Yes.
So I agree with that.
So I think we might be shorting it. I think if you were to tell the Card, I wonder what you would, if you told Ali Marmol or if you told Ivan Herrera, you're not going to catch 200 innings this year.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder behind closed doors, obviously Ivan would be pissed or annoyed. I wonder what Marmol or Bloom would say behind closed doors if you told them he's going to catch less than 200 innings. Because something tells me that 194 might
194 be, is by flag day.
Oh, yeah, by flag day. You're right, Duh. My apologies.
Yeah. So that's
200 innings in the first half of the year. Yeah. I just think, I think your split makes a lot of sense, but I think they're going to be a little bit more stubborn this year.
Another thing that I think Cardinal fans and
like
Matthew Rocchio need to brace themselves for.
No. Wait. Hold on a second.
Okay.
All right, go.
By the time you're ready to win in 28 or 29, Pedro Pages still might be your catcher. because of his defensive ability. Go back to when Tony La Russa famously stepped up to the podium one time when Yachty, and I'm not comparing Pedro to Yachty,
That
but
can't be possible. Come on now.
yeah,
There's too many. They have too many chances.
but
They're going to go over.
if this guy suppresses runs, and that's what the Cardinals want. They want their catcher, first and foremost, to be able to manage a game and play defense back there. If he is really good at suppressing runs, you can always move a guy's position. You can always move a guy to the outfield or to first base, or move him to first base. You know, Herrera. How about Herrera at first base? And now you have the DH. I would not be surprised. I won't be surprised either way. But I think that they like Pages enough and his defense enough that they would give him the opportunity to be the guy. He's only 25 years old.
I would agree with you if we were having this conversation in 2023. But with Ethan Goforth, with
Go,
Pogie,
Pogue,
Jamie Pogue, with those guys in place, with, as we see it now, a Yadier Molina who appears to be bought into his role, both as a part-timer up in the majors, but putting a lot more time into the minors. All of those things tell me that they will get Raniel Rodriguez and or Leo Bernal and or Jimmy Crooks to a point of managing a pitching staff that is no longer as reliant on dominant defense to suppress runs, that they can kind of hit the floor they need to defensively.
It doesn't matter whether it was 1876, 1976, 2026. You're going to have to call the right pitch.
And that's the thing, is that's more about calling the right game. And especially so take out
that's why all those
take
guys,
out the talent factor of arm, take out arm talent or anything like that, pop time, all those things. Having Goforth, Pogue, Yachty. If anything, I am confident that these guys will know how to sit down with tape and a book and dial in what the pitch calls should be throughout a game and call the correct game. If anything, that is the one talent and ability that I can buy into the potential of this team to lock into their young players.
This is where analytics fail baseball, because if you can't just get a book and a tape and say, okay, go out and catch, because
no, we're talking about calling the game.
That's what I'm talking about. Because Yadier Molina or Mike Matheny out in the bullpen for the warm-up can see what a pitcher's got and what he doesn't got. And what you do is, rather than go with the book and the tape and say, okay, well, this is what we planned, so this is what we're going to do. Remember that time when Waino had the bad shoulder, and I think he might have topped out at like 72 or 74 miles an hour in a game, but they were walking in from the bullpen, and he said to Yachty, he said, hey, we're just going to have to make it up tonight because I got nothing. Well, sometimes you got to make it up. It doesn't go. The tape and the book doesn't do the answer. And the best catchers ever, the best defensive catchers ever, Johnny Bench, Yadier Molina, Mike Matheny, those guys, that Yogi Berra, Bill Dickey. There's an instinct in sports, and they instinctively knew when a pitcher didn't have it, and we were able to change the game plan on the fly. Pages can do that. I don't know if Crooks or Bernal or Rodriguez can do that, but it's something that you don't read in a book, and it's something that really is hard to coach. It's kind of like when Kurt Warner said he could go up to the line of scrimmage and know what the defense was going to be before the ball was even snapped, because instinct. Some guys are just instinctive players in whatever sport they play, and I think catcher is one where if you're great, you kind of have it.
Wasn't part of that, though, Yachty's unbelievable knowledge because of the work ethic of the material he was being provided by Dave Duncan?
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
You can build that instinct. You can train that, can't you?
You can't train instincts.
I guess it's not instinct, but you can train the talent.
Well, but sometimes the best training that you can provide doesn't provide enough for a catcher to make all the people better. There's a reason.
He might not be Yachty. There might have a Yachty or Johnny Bench, but you don't. Yeah. Not having a generational catcher doesn't mean you don't have a potentially all-star catcher or a guy who can really well handle your pitching staff while being a little bit better than average behind at the plate as a hitter, which Pages just isn't.
Yeah, there's when people like Gary Bennett or Eric Kratz,
He's a great journalist.
Eric Kratz? Oh yeah, great journalist. When those guys stick around until they're 40, Einar Diaz, Gerald Laird, those guys stick around because of their ability to manage a pitching staff. And I know it sounds easy, but there's a reason that when people like Jeff Suppan and Todd Wellemeyer and Kent Bottenfield came to St. Louis, Jeff Weaver, and they got better, it's because of the game planning and because of the knowledge of whether it was Matheny or Molina. And the Cardinals had two transcendent game managers behind the plate in a row.
Saying game planning is instinctual?
But the ability to deviate from the game plan, as Dick Vermeil would say, play beyond the scheme. Yeah, I think that I know there's absolutely no doubt. If you ask people like Brad Thompson or Jason Isringhausen, say, does a catcher make a difference? Absolutely.
I believe,
the catcher makes a difference.
I believe that. I think, work ethic can get you pretty far sometimes. Talent takes you even farther. That's the truth of it. Yeah. Space Magic Storm says.
Let's one other quick point here.
Go for it.
Mike Matheny grew up as a catcher. Mm-hmm. Yadier Molina grew up in a family of catchers.
Yeah.
Right. And those guys, when they got to the major leagues, they not only were taught at the minor league level. Mike Matheny played at Michigan. His little league career, that was drilled into him. Be a good catcher. Yadier Molina grew up with Jose and Benji, the younger, and their dad was a catcher. Their mom taught them catching. It was part of life. So they didn't have an 8-year gap in catching. Those guys or in learning how to catch. And there's things that you grow up doing. People ask me why I know about sports. I didn't start when I was 23. I started learning about sports when I was 6, reading papers and stuff.
My thing is,
I know things that I wouldn't know if I had started paying attention to sports when I was 23.
That's an interesting perspective, and I think you're 100% right. And people make the argument all the time about the difference in soccer makes the argument a lot about specializing early and how that changes people. If you're not locked in by a certain age, you're done. But I would argue that Yachty being in that environment does show you that you can use the word instinct and kind of eliminate the word train because it doesn't make sense. But I mean, what Yachty has was built up from an environment and being around it all the time. Ivan Herrera can't get that after 8 years of losing it. But
here's
Rainiel Rodriguez is still a teenager. Having that kind of thing imparted to him over the next 2 or 3 years, again, combining it with the work ethic and the studying of pitchers and hitters and all those things, again, it can get you to a plate where it's not going to be Yadier Molina, but combine the bat, and we're talking about a player that you can win a ton of games with, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I'm just saying that Pages is a guy that has all that stuff. Pedro Pages can say, I've been around, and the other guys just can't. And I would not be surprised if Pages grabbed this job and carried it. Now, maybe the other guys will be even better. The great story last year about how Crooks and McGreevy were watching a Monday Night Football game, and Crooks left early because he wanted to go home and study what the team they were facing, and he wanted to study all the hitters. I'm not saying that you can't become great at it. I'm just saying that Pages has a head start over those guys.
This is really interesting. I know I'm not the biggest fan of it, but we are talking the same position, so I feel comfortable doing this. Looking at WAR. Comparing the same positions. Obviously, it's a little bit across different eras, so it's not 100%. But last year, Pedro Pages had a 1.4 WAR as a catcher. Win is above replacement as a catcher. Mike Matheny had one season with a better WAR than that. It was a 1.8 in 2000, and it just shows you that even because then at the same time, if you look at another analytic, OPS plus, it grades him as 22% below average at the plate. So you bring in you bake in everything as a catcher. He's below average as a hitter, and so you have to balance things out to the point where he is better than an average catcher in the league, better than a replacement catcher. It just kind of shows you that Pedro Paez, he puts his fingerprints on games. Bottom line,
even the most, that's all I'm saying. And that's a good point. That being said, I said right at the outset here, the analytics have failed the catcher position, and even the most ardent analytics people like Rob Trifolio and Chaim Bloom, will say that analytics doesn't nail catching.
Yes,
it's impossible to do because of all the ancillary things that a catcher has to do. By the way, Mike Matheny did win 5 Gold Gloves.
He did,
or 4. So I think that might be worth something.
Definitely worth something.
Here's another part.
I just want to take a look at it.
Yeah,
catchers might have been better back then.
And this goes back to WAR and being able to manage a group. If you ask anybody on the Cardinal teams that were great in 2000, 01, 02, 03, 04, ask players from that team. If you go to Roland, if you go to Renteria, if you go to Albert, if you go to Fernando Vina was there for a couple of years. If you go to Jimmy Baseball and say, who was the leader of that team? They would say, it was Mike Matheny. And if you ask Tony would say that too. So he and Yachty brought something to the table that is, in my mind, immeasurable.
Yeah, and I think Pedro Paez is a very useful player. It would just shock me if how good of a bat some of these guys are going to be, especially Raniel Rodriguez.
Oh man, yeah, because think about it when you
are supposed to be
how good that like Jordan Walker is.
Are supposed to be.
Okay.
Supposed to be. That's what I should have said.
Okay.
Ghostface Gaming, stability is needed. Bad. A more set team like the old days when we were good. He's tired of people playing your positions. You got one.
So, hey, Ron, you ready to get into it with me? Ron says, so we're trading all the other catchers. I did not say that. Did I?
No,
you never said that.
You're just you're questioning whether these guys are going to be able to handle a pitching staff as well as Pedro Paez. Which also, I guess, part of my question I would also ask is just, I mean, Pedro Paez is good at handling a pitching staff, but is he really that much better than what these guys will reach right now?
Well, here's the thing: he gets to work with Yadier Molina too, doesn't he?
That's true. That's a good point.
So I would think that he'll be pretty good. By the way, speaking of having to trade the other players, no, you don't have to do that. Craig Biggio was a catcher and moved to second base, right? Joe Mauer was a catcher and moved to first base. Dale Murphy was a catcher and moved to center field. Joe Torre was a catcher and moved to first base and third base. There are myriad players in the history of baseball. We're seeing it now with Adley Rutschman, right? That were catchers and changed positions. And by the way, catcher is a pretty rugged position to play. We kind of got spoiled that Yachty rarely got hurt. But that's a position where guys have a tendency to get hurt. Carlos Delgado started out as a catcher. The Panda. Remember when the Panda was a catcher?
I do remember that, yes.
Yeah. And I didn't realize this. Our buddy Ryan Howard was a catcher too. So you can players, Victor Martinez, players can switch positions. That's something that they're allowed to do in baseball. Kyle Schwarber was another guy that was a catcher, right? In college when they drafted him to the Cubs. So you are, and this is breaking news because it's one of Rob Manfred's initiatives. If you want now in Major League Baseball to change a player's position, you're allowed to do it.
Oh, fun. Uncle Sam says, Randy, all those guys you just listed were good to great hitters too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why Crooks, Rodriguez, Bernal, they all have a chance to be good hitters.
You just don't know if they are going to be able to handle the pitching staff the level at Paez and therefore force them.
I don't know, and I don't know how good Paez is going to be. All I said was I wouldn't be surprised if when the Cardinals are ready to win, if Paez, who's 25 now, would still have that job. It would not surprise me at all. Now,
I gotta say, I'd be a little surprised.
Really?
Yeah, so, I'd be really surprised, honestly.
When what do you hate about him?
Whoa, let's. How are we jumping first? How are we jumping to what do I hate?
What do you not
Pedro
like
Paez?
about Paez?
It's not. It has nothing to do with Pedro Paez. It has everything to do with the people coming up.
Okay.
And what
So-
and again, my entire premise when I first started this was, if we were having this conversation 2 years ago, I'd have no issue agreeing with you.
Here's the
But
thing.
now that they've made the changes, I have confidence that maybe not Ivan Herrera, but I have a lot of confidence that Crooks, Bernal, or Rodriguez, one of the three, will show themselves to be enough of a game manager that, combined with their bat, they will most likely supplant Pedro Paez as the starter by 2028.
And
I don't think that's crazy.
And the odds are really against those guys. Todd Zeile was a minor league player of the year, not just the Cardinals minor league player of the year, the overall minor league player of the year. Came up to the Cardinals in 1990, and they found out that he just wasn't a very good catcher. Did I mention? I did mention Joe Torre, by the way, didn't I? Joe Torre was a great catcher for a long time and switched positions. Cardinals had a catcher named Brian Anderson, who they said, yeah, this guy is going to be a star. He's going to come along and he's going to be our guy. And I think he might have got less than 100 at-bats. Brian Anderson in the mid-2000s, 2005, 2006, in that area. Never wound up being anything. Carson Kelly was a great prospect. Came up, didn't do anything until really last year. And finally, in his 7th or 8th year, wound up having a good year. The Cardinals thought that Andrew Kisner, the interesting thing about Kisner was people when he was in Springfield, I was told that his defense needed to catch up with his bat. And he came up, and all of a sudden he couldn't hit and he could catch. So it's really hard for guys. I don't know why at that position it's hard for guys to put it together at this level, but it is. And it's hard to become a really good catcher. And we know that at least defensively, Pages is already that guy. Now, I hope that they wind up with a great all-star quality catcher, somebody that brings a bat and can manage a game behind the plate. But I'm just saying it's kind of hard to do. So, and I hope they do it. I hope that there's a guy that the Cardinals say, okay, we really like Pedro Pages, but it would be malpractice for us to start Pages in front of this guy. I'm like you. I hope that those guys wind up being what we hope they will be. I'm just not counting on it. And maybe I just have a little PTSD from the way the system has been run.
I think that there's definitely some of that. I mentioned it earlier. Do you think, as they change the pitcher profile in this roster, do you think that will change at least a little bit how they have to maybe overemphasize defense at certain positions? Yeah. I think that it has to, right? There's
no doubt about that. And I think that the replay will change things.
Okay.
Because now the umpire has to be right. And the framing is not going away. Framing is still going to be as important, but now you're going to see actually where the ball crosses the plate. So, and you used to be able to, well, you still can, I'm sure, fool CB Buckner. But there are going to be situations where the framing is not as important. But the big thing is going to be, like I said, managing, combining a guy's best stuff on a particular day with the weaknesses of the hitters. That's the most important thing a catcher does. But then being able to block pitches in the dirt, call pitches in the dirt so that a pitcher is comfortable that he can throw the ball in the dirt and you're going to block it. And then being able to throw out runners, because one thing Major League Baseball wants to do with the bigger bases and less space in between the bases, they want to bring the running game back. And there have been significantly more stolen bases over the course of the last several years since that happened. Can it be that Herrera winds up being a good thrower because of his arm surgery? I don't know. But the other guys, Bernal can really throw. Bernal can do all the physical things. We know that defensively. I don't know enough about Rodriguez defensively. And then Jimmy Crooks is pretty solid. And Jimmy Crooks apparently is pretty good at being with a pitching staff and knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah, I hope if we have to break down or predict the second half or the last 90 games of the season, what we see with the catcher rotation, I hope there are some innings in there for Jimmy Crooks.
One other quick point is that Yadier Molina was not a good hitter early on.
No, he was not.
And became a really good hitter. So I think that's one of the other things, when we say, Pages isn't a good hitter, well, look at the start of Yadier's career. I think he had 216 the year they won the World Series in 2006, and then wound up being a 300 hitter a couple of times. So he just got better and better and better. 684 OPS, in his rookie year, 654, 595 in 06 when he hit 216, and then he jumps to 275 with a 708, 304 with a 740, 293 with a 749 OPS. So maybe Pius will get better too.
I guess I hadn't really. Fair enough. We got this, Rain. This is an old school comment. I want to see if you get a reaction here. The Cardinals miss Dave Ricketts more than I ever imagined they would.
Dave Ricketts was the best at training catchers. Even Yachty will tell you now that Dave Ricketts was unusual in his ability to teach catchers, and a great guy. He was around here under Whitey for a long time, and that's one of the reasons that people like Matheny had the success that they did. Pagnazzi had the success that he had because Dave Ricketts was training them. I don't know what happened with Zeal. I can't tell you. Well, I can tell you. Todd would be probably fine now because he didn't like to block the plate. And catchers got run over.
Yeah, they did.
So, but it is amazing how sometimes
he signed to be a baseball player, not a football player. Randy, what do you want from him?
Well, Ray Langford was a former football player.
Yes, he was.
Over a few
yes, he did.
So,
Brian Jordan ever take anybody out at home plate? He had to have, right?
Okay.
Come on now. The man was a safety, for Christ's sake.
My goodness. Oh, okay. Well,
I know. I feel like I'm half remembering a highlight of him absolutely smoking a catcher.
Okay. We will not punish you for leaving for 1 minute to hop on the old YouTube and type in Brian Jordan, Gary Bennett. Okay, type in.
Oh no, Gary Bennett gets destroyed.
Brian Jordan, Gary Bennett.
And I feel like there should be a rule. If you are pro in the NFL, you're not allowed to run full speed over a catcher because it's like, no, you get paid. Yeah. You get paid millions to do that already. Don't do this to me.
Okay, so you're
a baseball player.
Okay, here you go. And
oh no!
So.
Like a swing pass thrown behind a running back.
A 235-pound strong safety running over a catcher who's and so the story goes that
he's already down on the ground too, and he still gets flipping a knot. I mean, he's already down on the ground. Yeah. That's 15 yards. That's 15 yards. Unnecessary roughness. That's a late hit.
So you got to see this, guys.
Oh my God!
So Brian Jordan did get a guy. So, but here's what you don't see later on, and it's an MLB.com, a knockout. So,
did Bo ever take anybody out? That's Uncle Sam says because
he did
because Bo Jackson never did that either.
So,
I gotta look.
So Brian told me that Gary Bennett gets back in his crouch behind the plate and just slowly but surely falls back onto his back. Then he wound up missing 6 weeks. I think he had concussion, and I understand that Gary Bennett does not love talking about that particular situation where he got leveled. And you could also, Ray Langford, Darren Dalton is famous. So that's one of the all-time great ones.
I'd be absolutely furious if I was Gary Bennett because I'd be like, no, that's what you do is you hit people professionally. We're playing baseball. Mm-hmm. Like, give me a smack, but I'm not a running back. I don't have those pads on. You son of a. I would have been furious if I was Gary Bennett too. Oh my God.
Yeah. That was fun.
Never felt negative thoughts till Brian Jordan, but I kind of feel it from Gary Bennett in that perspective.
Cardinals lose today by a score of 6-1 to the Mets. Okay. We're talking the Key. We're hoping to be back at the Key soon. Yep. We got some stuff coming up. What's going on at the Key Burger Bar and Boogie?
Yeah, I just want to tell everyone about it right now because they're a fantastic sponsor. They're so incredible. The food's incredible. And they're your new home in the Grand Center Arts District. That's Midtown right there, between, what is it? Not Grand. What am I thinking of right there? Not Jefferson. But, Market up to where the Fox is and everything in between with Chaffetz Arena and all that. The Grand Center Arts District right there in Midtown. The Key Burger Bar and Boogie right there on Olive is your new home. It's fantastic. The Burger Bar features the ultimate smash burger experience with a dozen house-made sauces. The sauces are also fantastic on their fries. Nice little thick cut, very crispy, nicely salted. The food's incredible. They also got shrimp tacos, patty melts.
It's great at this time of year, shrimp tacos, man.
Incredible fare
Friday night.
Right now at the Burger Bar Boogie. Yeah, you can get down there Friday night. You can keep your Lenten feasting going with the fries and the shrimp tacos. Make plans now to be at the Key for all the great college basketball coming up. That's both the A10 Tournament and March Madness. They will have all kinds of fun happening, including drink specials each time an underdog wins a first-round game, as well as a quote-unquote beat the bartender contest. You going versus their bartender in some college football contest. If you're going to the first and second round of games here in St. Louis, you can head to the KEY STL before and after the game. It's the KEY STL Burger Bar and Boogie, 3225 Olive in Midtown, before, during, or after any game. And you can find out more at thekeystl.com. Check out all the information. I got it right now scrolling at the bottom of our screen.
As Braden Schenn, the Blues' former captain, and the Islanders come to town tonight, Robert Thomas, perhaps the Blues' future captain, speaking to the media about the trade of Schenn and other things. And Robert Thomas and a lot of Blues, Jake Neighbors, really were under Braden Schenn's wing for a long time, even longer, obviously, than Thomas was under the wing of Ryan O'Reilly. So I can see why Robert Thomas would be hurt by the fact that the Blues traded Braden Schenn. And obviously it's what happens when you're not winning and when the team is going as poorly as the Blues were going. So for Thomas to say about the trade, quote, that one really hurts. I'm not quite over it. That one will take a little time. I get it, especially because he's going to see him tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it's such a quick return for Schenn and everybody, it really is a crazy turn of events the way it happened so quickly. But, it's a big for Thomas. He talked about how Schenn is a guy who, got him through a lot, showed him how to be a pro and things like that. Obviously, when you win the cup together, that's going to be a special thing. And when that's your captain and you're one of the guys with an A on your sweater, that's another thing that's going to add to your relationship with that player. Taught him, showed him how to be a leader in his way. Sure, showed him how, this is what you got to do when you're a top line center. You got to be, they're going to lean on you defensively. He's going to lean on you for a little grit every once in a while. And I think Robert Thomas knows he wouldn't be the player he is right now if he hadn't learned from a guy like Braden Schenn. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
No doubt. The Cardinals have signed offensive lineman Matt Pryor as a free agent. He was with Philadelphia before. So.
You have your ESPN settings notifications set for Cardinals.
Arizona Cardinals, yeah, that's my team. Me and Amsinger decided to jump back on the Cardinal bandwagon because I was.
How's that been for you?
It's been fine because when they get great, nobody will ever accuse us of being a bandwagon jumper. I'm not going to be Kevin Durant. I'm not just going to find a winning team and try to get to it. I'm going to stick with a team that's scuffling a little bit and then try to win there.
They still got the little guy as their quarterback?
No, they cut him. He's gone.
Who's the quarterback going to be?
Jacoby Brissett.
Get the
backed up by Gardner Minshew.
Oh my God!
Yep, they signed Minshew yesterday in free agency. See, they're going to be bad for a while.
Fair enough.
Here they come. Okay, more Robert Thomas, and this is about becoming the next. Wanting to become the next captain. And remember, when the Blues signed Thomas to this contract, it's a big contract with 5 years left. Doug Armstrong said during the press conference, he said, "This guy's going to be our captain someday." And Thomas was asked about becoming the captain, and he said, quote, "There's a lot of conversations that need to happen after the season. To me, there obviously were some conversations before the deadline about what the future looks like, and I'm sure that'll get carried over into the summer. I think that's where things will get figured out." So do you think that Robert Thomas is captain material? You've heard him enough. You've seen him enough. Is he captain material?
Yes, because there's not one type of player that's a captain in the NHL is my thing.
From my perspective, yeah, there's no problem with Robert Thomas. Number one, he knows hockey. He loves hockey. But is he going to, I don't know if anybody really enjoys it, but when you have a season like this, there's three players that come and face the media every night. And one of them is the captain. For 82 nights, is Robert Thomas going to be a guy that's going to want to come out and talk to the media? I don't know. I know this and I think he's still doing 101, right?
Well, this is actually his interview from this morning with TMA this morning. He doesn't do it regularly anymore, but Martin got him on with Tim and Doug this morning to talk about these things.
When we had him on for the second year, he actually went to the Blues and said, "Yeah, I want to do it." and he came on with us every week. So it's not like he is averse to doing media, but when you lose, and this is not going to be great for a couple of years. So when you lose for the 8th time in 10 games, we are kind of a hassle. Are you going to want to come out and do that? Or is there somebody that's better equipped for that aspect of things, and then he can just lead in the room and on the ice?
It's interesting to me that you're immediately going to just the captain thing, because here was 2 answers to 2 other questions that in the moment took me and a lot of other people in a very different left turn to your right turn.
Okay.
I've loved St. Louis. I wanted to win a second time here and be a leader on the team. That's been my mindset the whole time. Obviously, different conversations have happened lately and will continue into the summer. We'll see the plan and see what's going to happen and go from there. He went on to say, I'm pretty clear about what I wanted, what I signed up for when I signed the contract. I haven't asked to be traded. It was going to be the end of that sentence, but he went under the bridge. When he came back, he finished that thought and then said, that's been my stance since I signed. We'll see where those conversations lead. My first reaction, and maybe I'm overreacting and looking too far into things, being a conspiracy theorist, that's telling me a guy who the conversations when he signed was, this is a winning club. The conversations happening now is we're not going to be a winning club for a while. And so I'm wondering if the conversations having again in the summer is, hey, how long before we're a winning club again?
That's exactly the question.
And so that's my thing, is like, it's less for me about the captain thing. It's more like, does he buy in not just to be a leader of this team? Does he want to be the leader of a team that's going to miss the playoffs for 2 more years? And like, this is, and that's what I think is like, he is not unhappy, but he now knows he has to deal with the reality, which is this is no longer the circumstances he signed the contract for.
Right. And I think that's the threshold, because from what I understand, when the Blues went to Thomas and said, hey, do you want to be part of this? He said, well, what is this? And the question was, okay, it might be a 2-year rebuild. That's reasonable. I'm only 26 years old. But if it's a 4-year rebuild and I'm 30 by the time we have a chance to win again, that might not be something that intrigues me as much. Now, another point that has to be made here is that in Andy Strickland's interview with Doug Armstrong on Friday night after the trades, Andy asked him, who are the leaders of this team going to be? And Doug Armstrong, the first 2 names out of his mouth were Robert Thomas and Colton Parayko. I want those guys to take ownership of this team now. And again, Army has sold Thomas to us as fans as a captain, and he clearly sees some leadership ability on the part of Thomas, because he keeps saying, I want him to be a leader. I want him to be, he has said he wants him to be a captain. So maybe because he's won a cup, because he's still relatively young, maybe he does wind up captaining the Blues into the future and helping young players, because do they have any other cup winners? Thomas and Parayko, right?
Benner, but he's probably gone in the summer.
Who's that?
Benner, but he's probably gone in the summer.
Benner and Sonny. But those guys, if you're going to have a group of kids,
multi-cup winner for Sonny.
Yeah, right. So if you're going to have a group of kids, you want to have somebody that has been through the wars and can kind of drag a team through this. That's one thing that Chicago has really been missing with Connor Bedard until the whole Corey Perry thing, at least. But I think that the Blues
it wasn't real. Scurrilous rumors.
He didn't get traded.
Well, he did get traded. But
he was a leader. He'd won a cup.
Okay,
and
fair
he
got
got traded.
Sorry, my bad.
Oh, what are you thinking?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm not thinking anything.
Okay. Anyway, I think that those two. And especially now, because you have guys that appreciate the town, they appreciate wearing the blue note, they have pride in where they are and who they play for and what they do. And I think that's something that is important when you have a young team, to have transfer over to young players. Try to imbue them with that pride that the current players have.
And here's a quote from Jeremy Rutherford that he was tweeting out. Very similar sentiment, but I want to see if this changes anybody's opinion or what have you. Obviously, there's lots of conversations that have to go on at the end of the season. I think we can talk more in the offseason about that. Ever since I signed my contract, I've made it known that I want to win again here. I want to be a leader here. That message has never been changed from me to them. I really think you can read this I like pretty cleanly 50-50%. Like anyone who's saying this, he's all about, he's buying in here because he wants to be the leader here. Anyone who's thinking he's saying that he's going to have to reevaluate this and when he has more breathing room, because he did remark when he was asked about the Colton Parayko situation, he goes, it's hard to make that decision in that short of a period of time. Yeah. When you got the summer and you got a little bit more time to move your family, which consists of your spouse and a young child. And like that's a lot easier to do in mid-July than it is to do on the trade deadline.
But if you're the Blues, well, let's just look at it this way.
I'm just throwing it out there.
If you're the other 32 teams, the price isn't changing for Robert Thomas.
No.
So, and Utah wouldn't reach that threshold with 3 really good young prospects. So is somebody that possesses a top 15 pick or multiple top 15 picks and top 15 players or prospects, is a team going to be willing to give up 3 or 4 assets like that for Thomas in the summer when they might not have been inclined to do so during the offseason? Because he's still a great player. It would still be highly unusual to have a player of that caliber at that age available to you. So I just wonder if there are teams out there that are willing to do 4 for 1 with really high-level young talent. Like Chicago could do it, but does Chicago want to do it? Right? Because Bedard would be part of the deal, right? You'd have to give up 3 top 15 pieces. And I just don't know if the team is out there. Now, maybe Utah will decide after their playoff run, okay, we're 1 piece away and this guy's it. And the other guys, we aren't going to count on them. So we'll move them to St. Louis. Maybe Utah's a team. I don't know. But I just, I think that Robert Thomas is going to be here because I don't think other teams are going to match what the Blues have said no to already. And I think the other point to be made is, and maybe this will change, and maybe with the conversations that Alexander Steen has with Robert Thomas, it'll change. But the Blues aren't anxious, clearly, to move Robert Thomas. They weren't calling teams and shopping him. Now, maybe he will say, hey, I want out, and I'll give you a list of teams that I'll go to. But if you're the Blues, you have to say why. How am I going to make myself better for 26, 27, and beyond if I move Robert Thomas? It's going to be pretty difficult. And the Blues, it'll be interesting to see tonight. Well, I'm sure they've put together a great video for Schenn.
Yes, and they have. And
Does he cry?
No, he'll get close, okay. But he's too annoyed to cry.
Okay.
Is what I'll guess.
Okay.
My last, what was that? What was it? You said the last thing you said. Tripped something in my brain
that they weren't trying to move him, or that if he goes to them and says, "I want to move," or will somebody give enough?
Yeah, I lost it. I had it, and I lost it. Sorry, no, it happens. My fault. Hands up. That's on me.
All right. The double bye for your St. Louis University Billikens. They play Friday, and do you have a hope?
And they need it. They need the double bye, Randy, because there's an issue going on right now, and that is Robbie Avila's foot. He's got the plantar fasciitis. We already talked about that yesterday. It's bad for the big man. It's bad for him. Something happened on Wednesday night that exacerbated it. That was the final game against Loyola, the final home game against Loyola. He exacerbated it, and he's had issues then. Here was the quote from Josh Schertz earlier today at Billikens media availability. A lot of it depends on how it heals, and then he's got to see how it feels actually practicing. He played 10 minutes of a game. That's all he's done since Wednesday. So it's hard to get a gauge as to could he play 25, 30 minutes in a game. We'll know more, Wednesday, Thursday in terms of what his practice looks like. Can he practice? And then that'll inform us going into Friday. He went on to also say that the only distinctions he's allowed to put on a injury report are questionable or out. And if you put a player is out on the injury report, they cannot play according to league rules. So he said had he had the full list of distinctions that we're all familiar with available, he would have put Robbie as doubtful going into that game on Saturday. And that's why he obviously only played 10 minutes as soon as he had a little trouble. He said that he would upgrade him to still questionable for the game on Friday, but obviously they'll know more at practice. It's unfortunate because this is also the 3rd year in a row that Robbie Avila has picked up an injury at the end of the season. At the final year at Indiana State, he had a rough A10 tournament at times because he picked up an infection. And last year, it was knee tendonitis that was biting him in the ass at the end of the season. I think his freshman year, he also had a little bit of knee tendonitis. So he's dealt with injuries at the end of all 4 of his seasons. And hopefully this time, there's no, complete derailment or misstepping from the Billikens in this first round. Their first round, probably the third round for the A10 tournament. We'll find out on Thursday who they face on Friday. It'll either be Fordham or GW. There was some couple.
Who'd you rather play?
Fordham. I think there's just Rafael Castro is this springy 6'10" shot blocking defensive menace, and I just think that player against a hobbled Robbie Avila is not a good formula. The other side of things is that while Fordham doesn't have the super athletes of Castro, Fordham, I believe, is a much more like fundamentally solid team. GW throws the ball around, turns it over. They've blown multiple games in the last minute, which kind of shows, I think, an undisciplined team. So how does that balance out? I honestly don't have the read right now, but Rafael Castro is a monster, and any game against him would be problematic. But at the same time, maybe you want a GW matchup because that's a good thing for them to cut their teeth on as they try to get better at physicality. We talked to Schertz, Avila, and Trey Green today, and one of the big things that Schertz has been talking about, and I asked both Avila and Trey Green about this, is how defenses are taking away the shooting of the Billikens right now. And they're doing what is called top blocking, which basically means you just try to stay above the three-point shooter when they're on the perimeter. You don't want them to get above you so that they actually get a clean shot off. Trey Green said it's very annoying. And Schertz talked about how essentially if teams are going to aggressively top block you, what that always means is there always is in basketball. It's always a game of trade-offs. So if they're going to aggressively top block the Billikens to take away their shootings, what that means is that they're consistently going to have one-on-one moments at the rim behind them in the paint. And the problem is that if you look at Amari McCautry and Quentin Jones in the game against George Mason, they went like 2 of 15 from the field and they missed a bunch of layups. So I was kind of wrong yesterday when I was wondering, like, is it QB decisions at the rim where they're taking layups they shouldn't because there's too many bodies? No. The aggressive top blocking essentially means there aren't as many bodies in the paint, which means the Billikens should be feasting on twos inside, and right now they're not, which is why it seems like they're not hunting the twos at their usual level. So if the Billikens can play the game we know they can, if they can be a little bit more physical on top, free up some of their shooters, they can continue pressing that advantage of having great shooting is you consistently open up the paint. And as long as they make good QB decisions at the rim, kick the ball out when they should, and finish at the rim consistently when they're supposed to in one-on-one moments, which is when you're supposed to finish at the rim, if they can do those things, maybe teams can actually have to be forced away from that aggressive top blocking. Maybe there's a couple possessions where Brady Dunlap or Nishan Sharma or Trey Green actually gets free. Josh Schertz even said we got a little gun shy at times. We weren't taking open threes that actually were opening up at times in that George Mason game. He was pretty harsh after the George Mason game. Here's what I wanted to play actually. We didn't play this yesterday, but this was Josh Schertz immediately after the George Mason game on Saturday. And it's very interesting how his demeanor has already changed since then.
Fantastic, and we were pretty pathetic on both ends of the floor, offensively, defensively, on the glass. There's nothing you walk out of here and feel like is a silver lining or some sort of anything to hang your hat on. We got physically manhandled. We were I thought we were pretty selfish offensively. Didn't run any kind of coherent offense, got sped up. I thought we got offense sensitive. So when our offense, we missed some layups and I thought we allowed that to affect our defensive effort and intensity. We couldn't guard the ball, couldn't keep the ball in front. Didn't do a good job of helping when the ball got downhill. And then if they did happen to miss, which was rare, then we couldn't secure the rebound. I mean, they had as many offensive rebounds as we had defensive rebounds. So it was a pretty, like I said, pretty pathetic performance across the board, every area. And again, just it did not, have them at all ready to play. And, that was, and I've coached almost 600 games, going back to my time in Division II. That's the most I've ever lost by in any game. I think previous was like 25 or 26 against Purdue. And I think Queens was 25 back when I was in D2, but that was as comprehensive a beatdown as I've ever been a part of in almost 600 games I had coached.
So that was him after the game.
That'll
Obviously,
get you whacked for cause at K-State.
obviously not great. Here was what he had to say about the Mason game earlier today. Mason, when we got good looks, we just didn't make them. I didn't think we got got bad looks. I thought really in the second half we got a bunch of really clean looks. Robbie got 2 wide open looks. We got a couple wide open looks. Trey got wide open. We didn't make the shots. Now, if you can only win games when you're making shots, you're not a very good team. But I think we've got to do a better job of helping each other offensively, which looks a little bit different than it did when people were guarding us more normally. Again, when people weren't top blocking them, the offense could run a little bit differently. And he mentions top blocking. Everyone else has to play one-on-one with no help. You don't really want to do that, and that's what people are forcing them to do right now. That doesn't mean you can't get to the same quality of shots. It just means you got to be a little bit more diligent in terms of how you operate and how you do the sacrificial, invisible things to help guys like Trey and Ish and Brady and those guys do a good job when they do get free. And their gravity does pull 2 defenders, so throwing the ball to their teammates in the seams, in the paint, and we got to get back to playing connected on both ends of the floor. So a lot of people were freaking out. Josh Schertz, even a little bit in postgame, seemed to be freaking out. Now you look at the tape, you get to step away a little bit,
Take the emotion out of it,
and now you see a much more cohesive plan for the Billikens to get back on track. Of course, part of that plan hasn't factored into what happens if Robbie Avila is not on the floor, and part of that gravity and part of that connective tissue is completely missing one of the most important parts. What does the offense look like there? It's another potential hill they're going to have to climb, but that's what Schertz has had to say now about the Mason game, and it puts it in a different light, I think.
Is it time for Jax Kerr?
It might be time for Jax Kerr. Jax Kerr, for you guys don't know, is the true freshman from Muskogee, Oklahoma, I want to say. 7'1", has hit about 40% of his three-point shots. He's only taken a few, but nonetheless, he's got a pure three-point stroke. He's also 7'1" and a superior athlete, so he's going to be able to block the living daylights out of shots all day long. So if they have to see Jax Kerr, I think it would be very interesting. Yeah. I don't think they want to go that far, but they can pull that trigger. That's exactly why getting Jax Kerr into a lot of games, every once in a while getting a guy like Cameron Hudson into games, that was important because the Billikens have, up until this season, only lost games pretty much for the flu. I think they lost 1-man game from Trey Green to an ankle or a knee. I think that's the only actual injury-related non-flu sickness that has actually caused them to miss any games this season. They've been incredibly healthy. And so so having a Jax Kerr, playing a Cameron Hudson, the point of that was so that after they are able to accumulate a few games in the regular season, if something happens in March, maybe they can step in for a 4 or 5 minute stretch and the team doesn't fall apart around them. I think Jax Kerr is at that point. I arguably think Cam Hudson, who again is his dad was on the Michigan State national championship team under Tom Izzo back in the early 2000s. He's been coached under essentially a championship pedigree his entire life. I think Cam Hudson's going to be a baller if he remains here a few years. So they have bodies if more injuries happen. But the bottom line is they know the offense has to create the leverage that they haven't been able to create the last few games. The defense has to lock in and stop making the mistakes it's been making. And if the Billikens can find those advantages against what the defense is now giving them, which is a completely different look than it was in January, they can get back on track. But can they do that in any way, shape, or form without Robbie? That's honestly what I don't know at this point.
Nobody does.
Nobody does.
And hopefully he will be there for at least part of this tournament. But, man, everybody that ever has that plantar fasciitis says it's really, really painful. So hopefully they'll be there. So it was the 2000 Michigan team, right? Hold on. I want to look at something here.
Yeah.
I think so.
Michigan,
his dad
Michigan
would have
State.
played on that. Would the owner of the Suns have played on that team too?
Ishbia?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Matt Ishbia was a freshman guard, and Andre Hudson was a junior forward.
How about that?
I had never even thought about that connection.
So now you know.
The other great connection is that Brady Dunlap's dad was a bench player on UCLA, and I think his junior year is when Reggie Miller showed up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so his dad, and Brady Dunlap's dad is also a college basketball coach now. So he got to hear some Reggie Miller stories growing up. So there's some cool connections to some real legends in basketball on this Billikens roster. Hopefully they can tighten things up and get back in. A10 tournament starts on Wednesday with the pillow fight between the lowest ranked teams, and then the Billikens will play on Friday morning at I think it's 10:30 Central, 11:30 Eastern.
All right. And because we all do multiple things here now, Matthew tomorrow is going to be our soccer insider.
Oh, yeah.
Our city insider on the fight on Matrix Midwest. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm pumped for that. I'm getting to sit in for Gen C's a couple times this week. I get to you guys get to do the fight on Matrix Midwest, and I'm doing a pregame, postgame, and halftime on the St. Louis City SC broadcast.
That'll be awesome. Good. You deserve it.
Also, tomorrow on the show, we're going to be joined by Nate Schwartz. He's a senior analyst for Pitcher List and host of the Approach Angle podcast. If you guys know Pitcher List, it has been something that's kind of taken over the baseball internet as of lately, because they're putting together these incredible graphics that really show what a pitcher's doing, where they're putting it. Like right now, I'm going to show Randy. This is the one they put out for Richard Fitz yesterday. So our guest tomorrow is Nate Schwartz. Is one of the guys who puts together these ones. He's been tweeting a bunch about Matthew Liberatore, Andre Palante, and Richard Fitz over the last few days. So if you guys have any deep down kind of nerdy questions about this Cardinals pitching staff, what are we seeing in spring training? I mean, I'm talking about, what does Matthew Liberatore's curveball look like? That's the kind of question that, if you're wondering it right now, get it into the show tomorrow. We're going to have him a little bit later in the show, around 3:30. So about 30 minutes in. Any pitching questions you have about the Cardinals going into this season, Nate Schwartz is going to be a fantastic one to ask them to. So get those questions in, get them prepared. Any nitty gritty with the pitching, we're going to get into it tomorrow here on the Randy Karraker Show.
Looking forward to that. Thanks to Wilson for getting us on the air. Thanks to you for being part of the Randy Karraker Show. And we will see you next time right here on STL Sports Central.